Today you're going to learn about how to write an introduction or lead paragraph. So the first thing that you want to do, your very first sentence of your paragraph is your lead. What you want to do is you want to look at your character that you chose and look at the trait that you chose. For example, in Priscilla and the Wimps, we chose that Priscilla is bold, meaning she's standing up for people. So the lead is tied to that. For example, some people stand up to bullies no matter what the consequences. So when you go to do your lead, think about your character that you chose, your trait, and what is a lesson that we can learn. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video right now so that you can write your lead on the piece of paper for your character and your claim. So at this point, this is what your paper should look like in front of you, and the lead should be filled out. Next, we're going to learn about the title, author, and character. So if we go back to the Priscilla example, we are going to start with "this was shown by the character." Go ahead and write that down on your organizer. Then we're going to put your character's name. Here I put Priscilla in Priscilla and the Wimps by Richard Peck. What you are going to do is you're going to put your character, the story, Thank You, Mr. Folker, and the author, which is by Patricia Polacco. So going back to your organizer, you should have this section filled out. You should have your title, author, and character. The very first part of your sentence should be similar to what is on the other organizer. So on your organizer, you should have written down, "This was shown by the character." Then your character in "Thank You, Mr. Folker" by Patricia Polacco. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video to make sure that you have your lead filled out, your title and author and character portion. Now we're going to go back to our model with Priscilla and the Wimps, and we're going to look at the next section, which is to include background information. So basically what this is, it's a 3-sentence summary, making sure that you're including your beginning of your story, your middle of your story, and your end of the story. So for example, in Priscilla and the Wimps, the Cobras were the school bullies who picked on students. One Cobra tried to pick on Melvin, but his friend Priscilla stepped in. The Cobras then got their leader Monk involved. However, when Monk went to grab Melvin, Priscilla chopped his hand away, stuffed him in her locker, and left school. So for this summary, you're making sure that you have what happens in the beginning of the story, what happens in the middle of the story, and what happens in the end of your story. So let's go back to your organizer for Thank You, Mr. Folker. This is the section that you should be filling out right now, where it says background information, 3-sentence summary, making sure that you include what happens in the beginning of Thank You, Mr. Folker, what happens in the middle of Mr. Folker, and what happens in the end. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video now so that you can start writing. Now we're going to go back to our model for Priscilla and the Wimps, and this is the last thing that you're going to fill in. This should be the easiest step for the day. So this is just adding your claim and 3 reasons and making sure that it's 1 sentence. So for example, in Priscilla and the Wimps, Priscilla is bold because she stood up to the Cobras, comma, she protected Melvin, comma, and most of all, because she takes care of the bully, period. Let's make sure that we have our commas and our periods. And what we do is we just copy the sentence down from our yellow organizer where it says Session 4 Claims. You're just copying the sentence that you wrote on the bottom of that page and putting it on our organizer for our introduction. So let's go ahead and take a look at what you should be doing at this moment. So on your organizer, this is the section that you should be filling out right now. You should be filling out your claim and your 3 reasons. Again, this is found on your yellow organizer for Claim Session 4. So for example, it could be Mr. Folker is kind because, list your first reason, comma, also list your second reason, comma, and most of all, and then list your 3rd reason. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video so you can do that right now. Okay, let's review. So for your lead right here, we are making sure that we're not talking about the story, Thank You, Mr. Folker. We're not talking about the characters. We're thinking of a universal lesson. So maybe your lesson is about kindness or bullying. You're relating it to the character trait that you chose. And again, make sure it's a life lesson. Moving on to title, author, and character. Make sure that you are including your character. For example, this is shown by the character. Add your character's name in the story, and then make sure you put the title of the story in quotation marks. Thank you, Mr. Fulker. And then the author by Patricia Polacco. Reviewing this section, you're just including 3 sentences about what happens in the beginning of the story, the middle of the story, and the end of the story. Then for the easiest part, you're just copying down your claim and 3 reasons from your yellow organizer. Let me know if you have any questions. Hopefully, we all were able to complete the organizer. See you next week.